Greetings and welcome to the Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to head to Golarion today, the world of the Pathfinder role-playing game? We're technically heading back into the past, deep into Golarion's history. We meet another one of the Runelords, Krune, the Runelord of Sloth. A fascinating figure that is very interesting and may make a return. I am your host and guide here, Dracovin. I can open up the gateway through time, space, and the universe to Golarion. You'll have to take my hand before we go. Do remember to give me at least a little bit of a tip here. Like, subscribe to things over on YouTube side, and hey, subscribe is a big one. Maybe ring the bell. And let me know if you have any experience with Krune and his realm of Haruka. Possibly doing one of the small adventure that deals with him, or maybe continuing the storyline in any of your own adventures. Let me know. Anyway, portal's open. Shall we get going? Grab my hand. Let's head back in time and space, Golarion, and Haruka, and Krune. Oh wait. We arrived! Hey! It's Thassilon! Everybody loves Thassilon, just don't. No one loves Thassilon. Stay near me. You don't want to be grabbed by a rune giant and taken away. Ooh, man, no. Stay close. You'll be safe. Thassilon. Anyway, there are a whole lot of sources that talk about Thassilon, Haruka, Krune, and the other Runelords. What are they? These books here. 3 adventure paths and the Lost Kingdom books. The Lost Kingdom books deals with Thassilon. The 3 adventure books, Return of the Runelords, Rise of the Runelords are the 2 big ones there that I kind of like, and Shattered Star. Shattered Sword deals with all the Runelords in general. Return of the Runelords deals with somewhat happened to Krune, even though that adventure is technically somewhere else. Yeah. It's kind of a different place for that. It kind of deals with that. And, of course, the original book there, Rise of the Runelords, deals with that tabletop. All good ones. There's a map of Thassilon, and you can see where you might have to zoom in a little bit here. You can kind of see over on the side here in the corner of the small area of Haruka. That's where Krune ruled. Who is this man? Who is Krune? He is the last Runelord of Sloth, so he wasn't the first one. He ruled over Haruka. He may not have been violent as other Thassilonian rulers. He was generally thought to be very lazy, living up to the Runelord of Sloth. But he was also a priestess of the goddess Lissala, which is very important to his character. None enemies wanted to kind of risk his ire because he mastered rune magic. And they didn't know the limits of his power. So he was very dangerous to them. It's basically why he wasn't aggressive and no one wanted to mess with him. Because he was a high priestess of the goddess, and rune magic was the strongest one there was of all. If you would look at him, he was a man that was short, bald, beady-eyed, and his flesh was tattooed with symbols and formulas of hundreds of secret spells. Beyond that, we don't know his appearance. We know he wielded a dragon-toothed long spear. I'll show you the picture of it. That is very unique. It's one of the intelligent weapons that was crafted by Zin himself for the Runelords as an offer. This one embodies the virtue of rest, not sloth. So it basically, the spear is intelligent, it's patience, and it basically sees itself defending Lissala's faith. And being that Krune is the high priestess of Lissala, oh man, I'm going to help defend you. You know, it writes through its communication, and it provides comfort to Krune. And any person that wields it basically has to hear its criticisms. It will criticize the spear will, if you try to wield it. He also was known to have a special rod with secret runes that were given to the priesthood of Lissala. Let's dive into the history of the man named Krune. Because Krune, as a Runelord, mastered conjuration. That was the Sloth one. So he was a master of conjuration. And though he was a high priest, he was also a wizard. Or, effectively, the version of the wizard that exists in Monster Core, in the Remaster Project, as it kind of replaced. He mastered conjuration. Just have to say. He ruled from negative 5525 AR to negative 5293 AR for 232 years. A pretty rightful and decent run there. Again, there were Runelords that ruled longer, some that ruled shorter, and plenty that ruled the entire time. He wasn't the first Sloth Runelord, but yes. He studied conjuration in the Temple of Lissala in Barakar. under one of the other Runelords. He became Lissala's High Priest in negative 5530. He got favorable counselor to Runelord of Vanara, Runelord that was his successor, the one before him. Vanara was an interesting Runelord because she chose a successor and peacefully relinquished her title to him in negative 5525. It's one of the rare times when a Runelord just gives up their title. During Krune's rule, Haruka was free of war, and the cult of Lissala rose to prominence, which had a kind of conflict with the Peacock Spirit, which had been the well-established religion in Haruka beforehand. Before Earthfall came, he actually separated his soul from his body, put it in a gem, very lich-like, and then went to sleep in a sarcophagus in a subterranean hideout in northern Haruka, instructing the followers of Lissala to free him after a century, his goddess's followers once the danger had passed. He was too lazy to build a kingdom for after his return, so he just went to sleep. Again, laziness. He did create some refugee tokens, hid them across Golarion, protected with traps and guards to basically have his servants that they wouldn't free him until they built a kingdom for him to rule. Earthfall was worse. It basically destroyed Lissala's cult, ruined his plans. It wasn't until 4713 that they managed to revive Krune, and this was only long enough to be killed by members of the Pathfinder Society. See the Walking Krune, which was a Pathfinder Society adventure. Yeah, he gets defeated in a Pathfinder Society adventure. After his death, Lapalta, a cleric of Yamasaw, basically searched for a scroll of true resurrection to resurrect him. She needed a powerful conjurer to create her engineer her polymorph, and she thought that Krune was the best candidate to provide the conjuration secrets, either as in return for resurrecting him, or by extracting the information forcefully. Granted, this kind of is unknown what direction is it. It's from the Rune Plague book in Return of the Runelords, so you kind of see what happens there. So, again, whether or not, he's returned, he's gone, up to your storylines, doesn't really say the result of the adventure there and its attempts to resurrect him. But it means he could, theoretically, be brought back. This was search for Vor. Let's talk about Haruka. So, we don't know a lot about Haruka overall. We know it was a very cruel domain and very hypocritical. People were lazy, so they were some of the worst slavers in all of Thassilon. Thassilon is a bad place, filled with a lot of slaving and very bad things like that. Guess what? The people of Haruka, being very lazy under Sloth, were the worst. Their capital was Zin Haruka, and we know that Zin Haruka was raised in old lore by a flight of metallic dragons, but since metallic dragons have been replaced, their equivalents, it's kind of hard to tell, but basically equivalent dragons basically destroyed Zin Haruka. So it's one of the city capitals of a nation that we know has been destroyed. Predominant features was religion. Religion was a very important thing. And that was one of the points in time where citizens of Haruka actually went to activity. They were highly religious. So Krune, being the chief priest of Lissala, and the priesthood developed to that, or to the Peacock Spirits, means this rival divinity was within there. And these clerics and people actually stepped up when it was needed to do stuff related to the church, other than being lazy otherwise and having just servants and slaves work for you. All the manual labor taken care of by someone else. Don't worry about it. That's hard. Here's another picture of Krune. I'm putting it here because we do have to talk about some of the other Runelords of Sloth, because there were some. He wasn't the only one. He was, in fact, the 7th Runelord of Sloth. The first one was Ziri, who led for 330 years. The longest Runelord of Sloth. The one that had the first span and was one of the ones that betrayed Zin and became when the Runelords first formed. Ziri was slain by Noctula, the demon lord who would become a goddess much farther on, basically through their patsy Agothane. Agothane being the second Runelord of Wrath. Basically, Ziri was one of the most powerful followers of Kofigur, a demon lord, And Ziri's death distracted Kofalier long enough for Noctula to assassinate that demon lord permanently and start setting up her good old realm of the in the Outer Rifts, where she the Midnight Isles on the corpses of demon lords. And this mostly set in the schism that led to the deaths of Agathane also and 2 other Runelords at the hand of Xandergul. So basically, it was a mess with the original ones. So what replaced them? Elithris was the second Runelord of Haruka, with a time of rule that was only 45 years. It's important to note that Elithris actually created the Sword of Conviction that was known to be under the Runelords of Sloth. Shiatari. Sword of Conviction, go see my full Runelord video on what they are, but basically it was forged in the Runeforged, and Istethri didn't really like this short sword, the Quicksilver Talon, the Sword of Sin, Sword of Sloth, and killed the creators in disappointment. Other than that, we do not know much about Istari other than a very short reign, and killing the creators of the Sword of Conviction. Again, the original weapon of Rune being given down by Zin. I was happy with Ziri. The third Runelord of Sloth, which only ruled for 97 years, a little bit better there, was Azardani, a female human. That's the only thing we know about her. Again, Ziri was a presumed human female, and Elithris was male. And again, presumably they're all conjuring-based character people, whether that's wizardry or a different class. They're conjurers. Our fourth Runelord of Sloth, which ruled for 161 years, getting up there, I mean, Ziri had 330 at the very least, was Zalat. Again, female, died somehow. Our fifth one was Krenlith, who had 95 years, went down in there, a human male. And then, of course, we got Irvani, who is a human female, presumed human. Again, we don't know exact species, but we presume human usually because of the human-centric culture at the heart of Thassilon. The sixth one, which voluntarily put down her powers, her death is unknown. It's presumed to be sometime around negative 5525, but it's one of those things is, we don't know when Ivrana died, or if she ever died. She just gave up her power and went off. So it's an interesting position to be in. What is the legacy of Krune? Well, there is actually an important legacy that deals deep with Krune. And other than the fact that most of the side of Thassilon, there really isn't one. His return, not really a big legacy. Haruka, not really a big legacy. Zin Haruka being completely destroyed. What is it? Lissala. His support of Lissala grew it to prominence within Thassilon and made it much more of a major religion. Not that it already wasn't one, but becoming a Runelord, basically the goddess of runes, being under one of the Runelords and under one of that place, made it a lot more prominent, especially in that region. Increased it, put it at odds with the Peacock Spear. So the Lissala does technically survive to the modern world. The cult of Lissala does remain. Lissala is a goddess. Its existence and whether or not it's like truly alive is kind of hard to say. Like many of the Thassilonian gods died or lost a lot of power. But the Runelords basically kind of corrupted her a little bit too, like it did to a lot of the deities that were under Thassilon. Yeah. With Aslan and Thassilon gone, her cult was mostly wiped out. Again, they tried to resurrect Krune, didn't go very well, but the cult has resurfaced, and they're probably not the only members. So the cult of Lissala does remain. It's probably the only legacy that, is there. The cult tried to resurrect Krune. They might try again? Maybe? I mean, you never know. It could be a storyline you could do, because it didn't go so well. Oh, Krune. But again, it's one of those things is probably much more powerful ways of magic to resurrect them at this point in time. But, yeah. But Lissala remains. Sort of. Maybe. Kind of. Very much so a lesser being a divine ordinance at this point in time than it was back in the age of Thassilon. But still, probably without Krune would not have remained post-Earthfall. But there you go. There's a brief introduction to Krune. I find him a very interesting Runelord. He doesn't get, like, really major stories. He, again, gets killed off in a Pathfinder Society scenario. It's kind of weak there. And then, yeah, there's that talk of resurrection. It's one of those things is, I kind of looked in the Rune Flag. There really isn't, like, a deep thing there with him for sure. So he's kind of like in this weird spot of kind of being an interesting Runelord, but also not. You know, he's definitely one of those ones that did not really do a lot. He's Sloth. But he certainly has an interesting history and an interesting connection with a deity that his worship drove more towards wicked and evil than it was. So, yeah. It's fascinating. It really is in the end. And I think talking about these Runelords that are probably a little bit more minor than the big story ones is interesting and can provide a very big, different direction. And I hope that you enjoyed learning about Krune. I enjoyed diving deep into him. Helping. We'll leave that there. Thank you for joining me. You can always check me out live on Twitch, which I record a lot of these things. I also do live plays of TTRPGs. The current one is All of Adam's Bow, Wednesdays at 8. Check that out. It's a Pathfinder 2nd Edition game. Check out Discussing Tabletop, Saturdays at 6. My discussion show, kind of podcasty thing. Great time to learn about news of the week in the tabletop world for deeper discussion topics. All the tabletop stuff does go up on YouTube, so you don't have to catch me live for that. I do some other things over there too, like kind of chatting and doing some video games, variety games, gaming with friends. So there's more on the Twitch side, but again, if you just want to stop with tabletop stuff, go to YouTube side of things. There, subscription's the biggest thing. That big thumbs up there. You know, put it in words, subscribe. And also like ringing the bell, leaving a comment, help support, push things forward in the algorithm. And hey, what do you think of Krune? Would you want to use him in one of your adventures as another attempt to resurrect him by the cult of Lissala? Would you want to play one of those scenarios? Maybe updated for his second edition, remaster? Let me know what you think about all that in the character. What do you think of him in the comments? Anyway, check out my social media link below. Good update on schedules, when things are uploading, all those kind of things. Anyway, until the next time, we dive in here, chat about things, and all that kind of stuff. I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful farewell.